We are here at last. The finale of Star Trek Picard is here. Lots and lots of spoilers. A really fun discussion. Hope you guys enjoy. Please attend carefully and let us know what you think.
You're just red alert.
All right, we should start recording our audio because it's too priceless. All right, I'm recording my audio, but we're not going to clap until Sean gets here. I'm sure he'll come in hot.
Okay.
All right, hold on.
Is this indicative of your state of mind after the end of the episode? You're just on red alert?
There he is.
There we go.
There he is. Are you recording your audio, Sean? Oh,
give him a moment. Jeez,
we're gonna miss the gold. Oh, nice. No, that's fine. That's a good thing.
What are conditions like in Canada? What?
Start recording first. Hold on. First, start recording.
It doesn't matter. I want to know what is life like for you, Sean?
Starfleet Boy wants to record all of these things for posterity, so that in 25 years we can talk about the COVID-19 and how it affected our lives.
It did.
How the entire planet was on black alert.
Yeah.
It is. That's what it is. It's black alert. There, I figured it out. Oh. It doesn't do me the way I want to be done.
I've got my washing in the back, but is this like, do we have two U's in this conversation?
Yes. So this is the only way I can record. This is the only way I can record the video and the audio.
How are you doing? I haven't seen you in a while.
Wait, are you recording?
I'm recording. Yes.
Let's all do the clap.
Do we have to do that?
Oh my god.
Okay, we have to do the clap. Okay, let's go.
We have to do it.
Da-da-da-da.
1, 2, 3. Oh, okay, hold on, sorry. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da.
Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da.
That last one was good. All right. We are recording and okay, so now you can resume your
but I want to know
questions.
how Sean is doing. I know how you're doing, but Sean, how are you doing? I haven't seen you in forever. What is life like in Canada right now?
Well, life for me hasn't changed too much because I still go to work. I'm part of the essential shops because so Trudeau has ordered all non-essential shops to close.
Right, just like here.
So we only have supermarkets, that kind of stuff. But I work in so as a pastry chef, so we do it's bakery and pastry, and for some reason they consider that to be essential. I thought it was like more maybe. I don't know, but anyway, the bread has to be sold, right? And the cakes too.
People need bread.
So yeah, I still do, but I'm doing shortened hours. I'm doing like midnight to maybe like this morning. I finished at like 4:30, so really short hours. And from what I gather, my boss is basically like, he says we have no money. There's like no money.
Wow.
We're running off basically funds from parent company.
Mm-hmm.
And like if Canada doesn't start like giving
a stimulus or something,
or something, because they said maybe they would pay like 10% of the salary for the employees, but like that's what is that going to do? Anyway, so that's it. And then I come home, and the difference is baby on the tube's at home instead of at daycare, because daycare's been closed for weeks now.
Wow.
So everything's on kind of lockdown, and I think they're trying to, do that flatten the curve thing, but it doesn't seem to be working too well. Like it seems like, I don't mean to be like the pessimistic negative person, but flattening the curve doesn't seem to work. It seems like it just slows down the curve, because the numbers still keep going up. But I think
that's what flattening the curve is. It's slowing it down because
if
everyone rushed into illness, it would overwhelm
we couldn't
the
respond, I
system.
guess.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it is working if it's slowing it down. But we're not.
I don't know. It's a strange thing,
like,
because then it kind of means that we're going to keep this situation considering we're flattening the curve and we're slowing down the number of infections, but there still will be the same number of infections. Ultimately, it feels like we're just kind of, instead of doing it all quick, we're dragging it out.
But
for like
dragging
months
it out
and months
may
and
buy
months,
the
but
time
maybe
to get
a cure, I guess, I suppose,
or,
a vaccine.
Well, more like a vaccine or some sort of treatment that can help you get through it. No, it's epic. Actually, I'm glad we're talking about this because I just want to say to our audience who's listening at home, thank you. I hope this distracts you from the the real life horrors that are occurring right now. I'm reading Albert Camus' The Plague, and it's a little hard to read.
Oh my goodness!
As part of a book club that I agreed to be a part of.
Was this book planned before the situation, or
no? It actually came about.
See, this is strange. I don't like. People have been watching Contagion and movies like that, and I'm like, this. No, I watched Sonic the Hedgehog the other day, and that was fun. There's no virus. There's nothing. It's just a blue hedgehog running around quick and Jim Carrey being a fool, and it was a good movie.
That's true.
Anyway. What I want to say, yeah, Canada's on lockdown, but I don't know. People are starting to get laid off from work. It's all kind of temporary unemployment in the sense you go and you apply for unemployment with the government, and they have a package that they can give you concerning this. So you get your job back. You're fired, but you'll get your job back once
it's furloughed. I think, right, is the term.
I forget how it's called, but this is a very unique and new situation. So it's just a lot of people that losing their jobs, but I guess they'll get them back after. But then that depends on what companies are going to survive this, I guess.
Right.
Anyway, we'll see. It's stressful for a lot of people.
It is very stressful indeed.
I won't go into the details of it because this is online and everything. But my current status in Canada means that if I lose my job, I don't have access to the unemployment benefits and what have you. Which means that it's in my interest to continue working, and if I lose this one, I'm going to have to try and find another one. So yeah,
there's some work from home opportunities. You're set up already. The fact that we can do this means that you can do customer support and things like that. So
yeah,
who knows?
I know that Gary worked in one of those home customer support services at one point, and I thought that maybe I could look into that. Though a lot of the supermarkets around are doing a lot of deliveries now.
Yeah.
So they've just opened up a whole lot of positions for people answering phones, taking orders, and apparently the legality of things has kind of changed in the sense that before you had to use the company car to go and do deliveries, but now they're just overwhelmed. So everyone's using they're just using personal
their own car,
cars.
yeah.
Everyone employs cars.
Throw that insurance thing. Yeah.
Yeah, just throw it all out the window because the situation's changed, right?
Yeah. Well, there's not that much traffic to begin with, anyways. So
no,
it's a lot safer to drive these days, I have to say.
But the US is is way worse off than us, isn't it? Because you guys have I don't know how many cases at this point.
Well, I feel it's true, but we're at least here where we live, we're in a shelter-in-place order right now. So let's see what happens. It is tough. It's very tough. We all worry about our security and our future, and hopefully this is a good little diversion from that for a little while. So on that note, we are back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal conversation about Star Trek. And today we are focused on Star Trek Picard's finale. Le finale? La fin? No? How do you say it? Le finale? Le fin? What is it called? Et tu Brute?
No,
I don't know. It was into armor, whatever. No, maybe not.
In Arcadia Ego, I think.
Oh,
I think that's what it's called. Part two.
Part two.
We were originally gonna. Sean and I had an engagement originally to talk about Lower Decks, the TNG episode. Lower Decks.
Oh well, you guys can do that. That's fine.
No, we want to do this because
I couldn't. Yeah, I didn't have time
there's
to rewatch
nothing
Lower
else.
Decks.
I
gave him the choice. I was like, should I rewatch Lower Decks or should I watch Picard? And he was like, just go watch Picard now. I'm like,
this
all right.
is too important. It's just we have to talk about it because we started talking about it. We've talked about it a lot, so we may as well finish talking about it. So. Would one of you gentlemen like to give the summary, or shall I? I'm prepared. I'm prepared to give the summary if you're not.
Did you prepare a short summary, or are you going to give the entire backstory to like the ancient race and?
No. It's a pretty man. You all, damn it! You like you totally know me so well. You totally like foiled my my initial plan here.
Evil plan.
All right, so I'll go for it.
Go ahead.
So, you ruined my summary. Thanks. I had the whole. That's what I was gonna do. It was totally predictable, as some might say, just like this episode. But anyways, That's what you said. You said that offline.
That's
you
very
did
true.
Say that. You did.
Very
say
true.
that.
Very true.
It was predictable too, but okay. So here's my summary.
To the summary.
You can't always get what you want. But if you try, sometimes you just might find you get what you need, and I feel like
quoting
that's
the
what
Rolling Stones.
I am.
How dare you, sir?
I am. I didn't
How
get
dare
what I
you?
wanted.
What are you doing?
I didn't get what I wanted, but I got what I needed, and so.
Whatever.
Wow, he was so upset. You're so offended.
Yeah.
We continue basically where we left off. This time we're watching Narek
in episode 1.
We're watching Narek run across the landscape of Capelius, actually the Borg cube. I didn't realize it was half in water, which is cool.
Yeah.
Anyways. He arrives at the Borg cube and managed to sneak in very stealthily, and apparently he knew that his sister would be there, which we didn't. I thought she beamed away, so I was wrong. So we were wrong. So Nerissa's on the Borg cube. She's like arming the weapon systems, and again, I'm also surprised that with all the repair crews and the little repair drones going around, that no one noticed that there's a Romulan repairing weapon systems, but that's okay because
they covered their asses with that because she has the line where she says, "Come and see my hiding place."
Oh, very good.
Oh, so there you go. That's the
brother. Come and see my
Yeah.
hiding place, brother. So creepy. Anyways,
it was a cupboard somewhere or something.
Is that a game they played when they were incestuous and young? Come and find my hiding place. Anyway, that was so bad. I apologize, audience. That was really bad.
No.
I would like to interrupt your summary and build on that and say that they kind of stopped that relationship. They killed that dynamic off, so I don't know if they were planning on doing
still pokes
more.
fun of him. She says, like, have
they
you
hug,
slept with...
They hug like a brother and sister.
Sister, they do. And then she
But
says, have
there's
you
nothing...
slept with any of the...
that's a joke.
Thanks,
but that's... Yeah. I was happy that they stopped that.
So, so anyways, she's working on repairing the weapon systems to help defeat, whatever plans might affect the Romulan fleet that's on its way. And then we go from that to Jean-Luc and, in his house arrest. And he has a scene with Soji where they discuss what's coming, and basically Soji's like, "Oh, we don't have any choices," and Picard's like, says a line that I liked, which is, "That's a failure of the imagination," and so Soji, he's kind of hoping that he'll talk some sense into her and that she won't bring the creatures from the Avengers to destroy all sentient life in the universe. I like how Sean didn't even react to that, but I'm glad that you did. Jeez. Or Cthulhu. Some people are saying it's Cthulhu, like robot Cthulhu. Cyber Cthulhu, yeah. Anyways, from there we go to the La Sirena.
It looked like those aliens in Marvel's The Avengers coming through the portal.
That's what I just said. You weren't listening. You definitely weren't listening. I now know that you weren't listening. I don't know what you're doing, but I think I need you to.
I was opening the tweet that you said hop on Skype whenever.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, well, you can close that now.
I was reading what you said, but I didn't listen to what you said.
Sean, please attend carefully. I'm doing the summary. I don't want you to, just how I missed.
He just watched the damn thing. Now he has to relive it through the summary. It's bad enough he watched it.
So anyways, then we go to the La Serena, and we have a repair scene where basically we get this magic tool, and we find out how it works using
the sonic screwdriver times 10.
It is the sonic screwdriver, but I think that psychic technology is not far-fetched anymore because of Doctor Who.
Okay, wait. We have to stop the summary. That's beyond psychic technology. This is just a literal magic wand. Oh, let's just fix the engine. And the engine is fixed.
You know what? Okay, so that is one thing. But what bothered me more than that, when they they used the same wand to do all the many faces of Gerardi, and then they did all of the ships.
Yeah.
What bothered me the most is all of the ships had a warp effect, and I was like, why do they have a warp effect? Because all of these ships are supposed to imitate the actual La Serena, and the La Serena was just sitting there. All of the other ships sort of appeared just out of thin air. They shouldn't have warped in as if they were coming in for battle, and I think that was an error. Even if you accept the magic of the wand, it shouldn't have had that warp effect. That was false, in my opinion.
But see,
that's my comment.
I think it is meant to be a magic wand, and the effect was the effect is to suddenly see all those ships show up.
Oh, you really think
the writers are
desire,
thinking of it?
Her desire was
it's like a genie.
That was the effect.
Yeah, and the writers, the writers think of it as a magic wand. I really think they're looking at it as a magic wand.
It's Deus Ex Machina in your hand, right? Anyways, but regardless.
So resuming the summary.
I just think that we can't argue about it because someone, including myself, in my brain, the little voice in my head, will say, a sufficiently advanced technology appears to be magic. So whatever. Anyways, so then after they repair the La Serena, we get Narek arriving, and he starts throwing rocks at it. And anyways, they decide to listen to hear him out, and then we get a scene where he's kind of letting Rafi and Rios know what's going on. Then Elnor arrives. Elnor, is really, almost kills him, but they talk him down, and they realize that, oh shit, maybe we do have to do something because Space Cthulhu's coming. Sorry, what was it? Synthetic Cthulhu's coming. Cyber Cthulhu, I like that better. Cyber Cthulhu's coming, so they start to concoct a plan, and we finally get lightning storms on the planet that's supposed to have lightning storms constantly.
Constant light.
Yeah.
I noticed that. It was a really nice planet. Part 1, right?
There were storms in the background, by the way.
There was one scene, and I noticed this is one scene in part 1 where there's a small little lightning strike, but it was still a very sunny blue sky, right?
When the La Serena arrives in the previous episode too, there's lightning from space. You can see a system lightning happening also. So okay. But constant lighting, constant electrical activity.
We'll just say it's an expression like the way you say that. It's always raining in London. You know what I mean? It's not always raining in London. It's there are days where it's not raining. So you just, I don't know. She says it was constant electrical activity or whatever, but it wasn't constant.
I just think, to be the devil's advocate again, which I hate doing because I love the show, but
it's always raining in London.
No, well, the thing is that that's how they found the planet. So it should have been significant. From what I saw, it was just how it's on Earth. You know what I mean?
It was 2 red moons on red clouds with lightning, and I was expecting that. That's the decor that I was expecting. But.
Yeah, I agree.
So okay. Anyways, so we get the history of we get the legend of the destroyer and all that stuff, but then Narek implies that it is in fact a history, and history repeats itself. And I know you didn't want me to go into it because it speaks for itself. It's like the destroyer myth is constantly throughout. It's just something that, you know, they compare it to Ragnarok and Armageddon, basically. I think Rios says something like that. So they replicate it. Narek, by the way, has these explosive devices. So they replicate a fancy flower opening soccer ball and put the explosive in there. And they go and their plan is to basically, I guess, kick the soccer ball into the tower and hope that it explodes.
Go.
Meanwhile, we get a scene where Girardi, I like, by the way, Brent Spiner, another freaking kudos to him. I think he definitely stands out as like a phenomenal, because in this episode we really get to see the Soong character, what's his name, Alton Soong, a lot better, and he's not just like a two-dimensional villain as I thought he was going to be. So I was pleased that subverted my expectations, and that he's a lot more complex, and like, in fact, that he even like is disappointed in his children, quote unquote. I just don't understand that if he could deactivate Sutra, why he couldn't do the same thing to Soji.
I don't know. He should have noticed that Sutra was a bitch years ago.
Yeah, right.
She was clearly the terrible synth on that planet. Like, all of the others are just hippies, but she was terrible.
Well, he finds out the truth about Sutra, and it's pretty gruesome. Like, she stabs her sister in the eye, and like, whatever.
Precious golden eye.
The precious golden eye, not lace nor leather. I had to
Thank you, Tina Turner.
There is a moment where Data has the music and he looks like a Bond villain.
Wait, we'll talk about that. Let's not get there yet. But
he's just missing the cat, right?
I mean, yeah, it's just like he should have just had Spot.
He just had Spot. It was like Mr. Picard.
So we get a little more information about the golem in that scene. We get information about, we get, some interaction between Girardi and Alton, and we find out that she's plotting to spring Jean-Luc out of his prison. All this is going on at the same time. Finally, when Alton realizes the truth about Sutra, he then goes to confront her and runs into the Motley Crew and decides to help them out, I guess. So they all get to the gathering area, and there's that moment. Meanwhile, Picard and Girardi head back to the La Serena and start concocting what to do. They only have 6 minutes till the Romulan fleet arrives, and there's a really good, a really good Picard moment. I really like the lines, the exposition in that scene where he's like, fear is a terrible teacher, and like, you're right, they're like children in many ways, and so how do you you have to show children through your example. So he sits at the chair of the thing, and it's reminiscent of, people were complaining, and I felt similarly, that when Jean-Luc, even though it was funny when Jean-Luc sits in the seat and is like, I don't know what to do, it was a little sad. And here finally he's been observing Rios, and he figures out the controls, and it was just great to see Patrick Stewart doing technical stuff and flying a ship and just being a badass action hero, which he's proven that he can be as well. And they head out into space, and we already talked about the thing, but I liked, again, another thing I liked was I had forgotten that planes scattered mirror fragments to throw off radar back in the day as a method, and so that was a cool analogy to kind of explain what they were going to do for those who don't know what the Picard maneuver is and aren't that deeply ingrained into the the Star Trek technical jargons and ethos. It was a good way to explain what was about to happen. We get the flowers go out into space. We get the Romulan fleet arrives. I don't know how you guys felt about it, but I thought the space sequences were pretty impressive for what was going on. But I also have to say that I thought the reality dawned on me that they don't have an endless budget for this show. Okay,
that dawned on me a long time.
I know, but it dawned on me here.
It dawned on you. It dawned on you when Jonathan Frakes wasn't on the surface of the planet, and he was just on a green screen, on a view screen, right?
Well, and that all like 300 Federation ships were the same.
Yeah,
they were just all.
But then
the same.
he explains it. He says, "This is the toughest ship that the Federation has built, and I got them all." La di da.
Which is
it's true.
ridiculous.
I guess that's true.
Yeah, that's
no, it's not. I mean, it's kind of not ridiculous, but I get it. I get it.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to. I just wanted to see. I wanted to see a Galaxy class ship. I wanted to see a Sovereign class. I wanted to.
Yeah,
those just me personally.
That there are many ships the same. That's okay. Yeah. But it doesn't make sense that all like 2,000 or whatever are the same ship.
Exactly.
Like I understand that they would bring out maybe 200, 250 of the same models, because once you start building a design that's effective,
I want to know.
Not only that,
you're going into this situation. Where's the medical ship? Where's the Pasteur? Why wasn't it there? Why wasn't Beverly at Jean-Luc's side when he was dying? When he okay, sorry, go.
But I thought the whole part of the point of the show is that the reason they're still angry at Picard is that their abilities to build ships have been seriously compromised because Mars is still on fire.
Yeah, but there are there's lots of other, and in 14 years they certainly would have
two, according to the show, and
14 years ago.
2,000. If they had 2,000,
there were only 200.
I'm going to explain this off by saying that I'm going to explain this off by saying Riker says it's a ship built for combat. It's a tough little ship. So that ship they couldn't have used that for the evacuation, right? Well, it wasn't feasible to use that for the evacuation because it was a combat ship. And I'm going to just say that maybe these were built before the that happened.
I think these were built post. No, he said they're brand spanking new. This is the latest and greatest. I think they were built recently.
Oh, no.
I think in 14 years you can probably set up a new shipbuilding yards. What they're pissed about.
You can set it up, but then you're not going to just shit out.
It doesn't take 14 years.
It took. You don't have any more Android slaves to do that anymore.
Sorry, hold on.
Exactly.
It wasn't 1,000 ships. It was like 200. Just to be clear. Just so you know,
it looked like 1,000 to me.
It did, but it
wasn't. Even if it was 200, it's still a lot.
Wait a minute.
In 14 years, you can build 200 ships. I'm sorry, that's kind of ridiculous.
Not according to what we've seen just recently on Star Trek. No.
Let's put a pin. Let's put a pin in this.
That's the whole point. That's the whole reason that they're upset
it wasn't.
at Picard.
They were They're upset because Mars is still on fire, and that thousands of people died.
Building capabilities, all of the shipbuilding capabilities, was diverted just to helping Romulus. That is the premise of the show. That is why Starfleet was upset with Picard. Is like, we can't do this. What you're asking us to do is to just stop everything, and we're going to focus on just building ships to save the Romulans, and that's what they did, and they did that for 2 or 3 years, and then they had the thing on Mars.
The show makes it clear that there were enough resources. Jean-Luc had an alternate plan. He presented it to Starfleet. They backed out of fear that more of this kind of thing would happen, and they thought, this is not the time to help others. This is the time to defend our borders, to protect ourselves, to things like that.
Plan B was?
Yes.
What was the plan B?
It says it in the episode where the 14-year flashback. He had already there were like some other fleets. They mentioned the other 2 fleet yards, and they also mentioned They also mentioned through inference, like a Dunkirk type thing, where like you could have gotten, but that's okay. The plot wasn't that the shipbuilding capacity is gone.
It's not realistic that they had so many ships, brand new ships.
It is 100% realistic. It took 14 years to build them. there's plenty of time. You could build a fleet like that probably in 5 years or 10 years. It's 200 ships. It's not thousands.
So how many ships are in Starfleet? Because I know that,
That's a good question for the folks over at Trek Yards, who would probably be able to give better estimates.
Because if they build, okay, so we have 200 ships in 14 years. So over the course of Next Generation, how many ships were built? Because you're saying 200 in 14. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, we would have just...
I think we'd have to look this up.
The thing with ships is that they're constantly mothballed. There's a whole process of, they're sent out on different missions. I mean, I'm assuming these ships had other missions. They weren't just waiting for
I can just
the
say
call
that
Riker,
based on Deep Space
to send
Nine,
up the bat signal. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, and I don't want to take up more time, but that scene was ridiculous, and I really hated that scene. But go ahead, continue with the summary.
Then you have to say that the scene in Deep Space Nine is also ridiculous, where there's like a million ships. What looks like a million ships.
Because they were in a state of war.
But
what war are they waiting for in Picard?
There's always the threat of the Borg. There's so many different things. Like, it's just, I think it's a little. I think we should really stop this conversation because
go ahead.
It's not going to
continue
okay.
with the summary.
Anyways, the fleet arrives. The impossible fleet, which is not impossible for the 200 ships. It's it's like so tiny compared to the full power of the Federation. But anyways, the fleet arrives, and then all the action comes to a head. We have 709 fighting Narissa. We have Soji activated. She activates the space digital synthetic Cthulhu, whatever. What were we calling it again?
Cyber Cthulhu.
Cyber Cthulhu. Jean-Luc is dying. He's trying his best to hang in there, and so finally he reaches out to Soji and he appeals to her one last time, and she finally comes to her senses and breaks the signal. And that creates a situation where now the Romulan commander could possibly have softened, but she decides to attack anyway. She lays claim to the planet, but fortunately Riker comes out with his badass, "Oh no you don't, we have claim to this planet before you do, and give me any opportunity because I'll kick your frickin' Tal Shiar ass." He said something along those lines.
He says, and I quote, "I'm gonna throw a pizza at your face."
So the Romulan fleet decides to back down and retreat, and Jean-Luc is victorious, and Riker and he have a cute moment, which I'm surprised, though, that Jean-Luc doesn't confess, or Jurati didn't confess that this guy's dying, but it's okay, whatever. Jean-Luc wants to keep his status to himself, and when Riker leaves with his impossible fleet, which I'm going to call it that from now on, just to harass you. when you finally do the number,
known as the impossible fleet.
I request Trek Yards. I'm going to request it to do a status of the fleet episode just for you, Doctor.
I personally have more problems with the fleet of basically drone ships that popped out of the Enterprise.
Yes, I hated that. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Than this. Like this, I see where you're coming from, and I know that they made this fleet more for the spectacle than like it's not like the constant threat of war that you have in Deep Space Nine. This is like we need a spectacle for the end of season. So I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But I also see what he's saying, where like you could have these ships, like it's not unimaginable, whereas I think that the end of Discovery Season 2, they just popped out all of these shuttles and pods and everything, like all
drones.
Of these things
they
that
had
just
like these drones that came out of
in the Enterprise, and Kirk never thought to use them ever in his missions along the way. Or like it's fine. There's like a doomsday machine out there, but it's fine. We don't need to use our little ships, right? It's like that to me was more annoying than this. And I think it does come down to continuity and canon, in the sense that like that didn't fit in with what came after, whereas this, I mean,
I just thought the sense of scale was. I just wish they'd scaled it back. I
That's
wish
okay,
it hadn't
but
been
that's a major complaint that I have, and I think many have. It's like they scale these seasons,
right.
they
They're
scale
going
these
for
stories.
Star Wars.
They go in for
really.
very big stuff. I mean, yeah, the Borg cube, half in the sand, half in the water, is very, very Star Wars, right?
Right,
Like,
and I think the again the whole face off on top of the planet it was just very Star Wars.
It's the spectacle. It's like we need.
I
we
wish
need, we
it
need
had
the
been
season
scaled
finale
back.
to pop.
You know, if
It
it had
was,
just been
though.
20 ships
I'll
on
tell
each
you what,
side, I think
it
I would have
was-
been happy. But
It was scaled back in the sense that they didn't actually fight. Because I was expecting a 20-minute battle, just explosions and things
Yeah.
running
And-
around and lasers and like they did with Discovery Season 2, just like
Diplomacy won the day,
with
which is
Burnham flying through
very,
everything.
which is very what everyone wants. I think at the end of the day, diplomacy won the day. I mean, the Romulans were forced to retreat; they had no claim. The power of the Federation's impossible fleet was too.
I love
too
how the
much to
Federation
risk.
they just come in and they say like, we own this planet, and this area of space is ours now.
right,
But this isn't a Picard complaint. They've done this ever since like the Next Generation or whatever. Like they just arrive somewhere. They're like, this is ours now. We claim this rock, and it's part of Federation space. And if you want to trade with us, you have to respect our ideals.
that's
It's
why
like-
the Klingons hate the Federation. Yes, Klingons say that all the time about the Federation.
The flag of the Federation flying in the breeze. Nice
That's
station.
Finish the summary. So Picard dies, and
So then
then
we
he
get
doesn't.
Picard's death scene.
and then he doesn't. Right.
And then he doesn't die. But then we get what I think, and I
But
want to
Data
spend
dies
time.
again.
Yeah, I want to spend time talking about that. We get an interesting little. This gets really wild and science fictiony, which a lot of people predicted this ending, so it's not a surprise. But I heard, I heard in my travels online, I heard people saying that Picard would get the golem, or the synthetic body at the end. But it was a novel solution to a problem, I thought, because everyone was expecting Jean-Luc to die. Like, he had to die. This was his, thing.
I wanted
This
him
was the
to.
thing.
Yeah.
In a way, I did too.
We discussed this. Yeah.
Yeah, in a way, I did too. And so he does die. We get his body dies, and he gets a brand spanking new synthetic body. So it's
I'm not
just
a
think
fan
about
of
the
that.
implications, though. Jean-Luc Picard is a synth now.
Yeah,
I
think
mean,
that
that's
maybe
heavy.
That, maybe
Like,
that,
this is
maybe
the
that's
first-
part of the narrative for the second season. But I would have preferred Picard to die at the end of season 3. Like,
No, I
human
think
Picard to die at the end of season 3.
if this was his true death in this episode, this would have been a totally different episode of Starfleet Boy, because I know we're never going to get my expectations, but my expectations is for Jean-Luc to die surrounded by his crew, his old crew, and the new crew can be there too, but I want, Riker,
Yeah.
Geordi,
Raffi
Worf,
counts as an
Beverly.
old friend, technically.
She does,
Like,
yeah.
Raffi does count as an old friend. It's like all the others is not really, but
Yeah, I didn't want him to die alone.
I
he's...
I have no problem with the fact they transfer someone's mind into a golem. Like, why not? That is science fiction-y. My problem is more that, ultimately, if you just take this season as a whole, his eromotic syndrome and his death, it's all pointless because it brings nothing on a storytelling level, because ultimately they just put him in a body that doesn't even have, it's not like they cast a younger actor and they made him strong or anything like that. They essentially say on screen, well, you're exactly the same as before, and we've programmed you to die when you were going to die. So all of the eromotic syndrome plotline was rendered useless by what they did, and I find that a bit... It's like, I liked the idea that you have this Picard that's trying to be Picard, but sometimes he's erratic because he's got a problem. But now he won't be that way. It's just... It should be just normal Picard.
I mean,
I don't know,
in a way, though, it satisfies me because, the aromatic syndrome was definitely something that I've always thought about. I knew it was looming, and the way I would have liked it, of course, is that, Beverly comes up with the cure, and, they cure it. However, this was a novel approach to a problem, like to like a serious issue, but it also like evokes just, science fiction should inspire, right? And to me, it's like inspiring because I've mentioned this before. My father suffers from early dementia. It's under control. He's stable. It's not like he's not like Jean-Luc or anything like that. But if there could be a way to transfer his, what makes him, like the consciousness, into a synthetic, and give him like a synthetic mind, so to speak, that could save his faculties for as long as he, that's the other thing I like, is that like I don't think Jean-Luc would have accepted a super body, or a younger body. He would have been very pissed. He would have been like, you should have let me die. This is not what I want. It's also horrific to think this was like like in a way it's like that's a Frankenstein, right? Like that's like what a golem is essentially, is Frankenstein. And in this way though, it's acceptable. Like nothing is different. Like he has nothing to complain about. Like they're just saying like, we just don't accept your death being that way. Like we want you to die a natural life, and so this body will terminate in a natural way. And also it's feeble just like you were, and it has the same limitations just like you were, and it was like
that I agree It's just that I think that from a narrative standpoint it takes away from the whole arc, the whole plot of him having the thing, and then also like it kind of,
I think
like,
it completes that plot. I see it differently. I think it like it resolves the plot is what it does, in my opinion. Like I don't think it takes away from it. It resolves that plot, which is good. It needed to be resolved, I think. Like why stretch that out for 3 seasons? How much of like, Picard phasing in and out? We've already got it in All Good Things in a big way, and it was good that it was like present here because we knew it was coming, but now it's resolved.
Because I find the fight between Picard's mind trying to remain Picard, and I find that fight between that and him just losing himself, I find that interesting, and I think that they could have dived deep. Like if Picard had been a character piece about
I do
Picard.
too, but then it, like, again, Patrick Stewart did it already in Logan, right? Like, so why repeat that? No, I'm kind of serious. You know what I mean? Like, it's like why would we?
I don't like.
This is to me what I liked
that.
about this is a Star Trek solution to the same problem that we had in Logan, where what's his name, Professor X was losing his mind. Like we saw him completely, like he couldn't control his powers. He would have these moments where like shit would get real, and then it was just like horrific, and we got a taste of it, but we got a I don't know. I'm very satisfied is I think the word for it. Another thing that was satisfactory for me, I guess the summary's over, right? Like No, wait. So then the Magnificent Seven gather on the La Serena.
Is it 7? Is it 7?
There's 7 of them.
Oh, really?
I was waiting for this because it's the structure of Star Trek. That's the Star Trek structure. 7 people. Always. And we know 7 is a powerfully magical number. 7's a powerful number.
Rios.
7.
I'm just gonna check up the last scene and then just count them.
Just
1,
look
2,
at the
3,
post.
4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, there's because Soji went with them, so there's Soji, 7, Picard, Rios, Raffi, Elnor, Girardi.
But I just didn't think 7. I mean, I know 7 of 9 is in there, but I don't. I don't expect her to be part of the.
She might not be. I'm just saying that the statement of that scene, the final scene, it's like they're in their full power. This is like it's like here they are. This was the crew that we were waiting for, the motley crew, albeit, but like here it is. It's like 7, boom, right there.
I didn't even pick up on that.
Because you were pissed because of the Impossible Fleet. I understand completely.
No. By that point, I wasn't even pissed at that point. I was more. I just wanted to get back to the Expanse.
He was discouraged.
Yeah, discouraged is more like it. Yeah,
discouraged. Anyways, they go off. They go off, and the episode ends. But what I want to say is, for me, and I talked to PJ briefly online, and for me, the data stuff, just I lost it. I was like crying, bawling tears. We didn't talk about Data's death because I want to really talk about it. This is after Kirk, the first final character death in Star Trek, as far as I know. Oh no, there's Dax. Never mind. Forget it. I throw that away.
The first final character death? What do you mean?
Well, like Data's dead. Like Data is. I know Dax kind of goes on, but like Data's got like
Data now or Data as of Nemesis.
Data's Nemesis consciousness. I mean, Data died in Nemesis, right?
Right.
But this is a part of him that has lived on in some fashion or some form, and he requested his death. Like, the character's retired. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's it. Data's gone. Like, they disconnected him from the Matrix. He's
but Data had died in Nemesis, and for all intents and purposes, he was dead. As far
but
as
this
the
is
fans
the
were concerned, right?
but Jean-Luc died in this episode, and for all intents and purposes, he died. Like, what is death, right? Like, if your consciousness continues, are you dead? Like, what was that? And PJ called it quantum purgatory, which is where
I didn't see Picard die, to be honest, in this episode.
Yeah.
I didn't interpret that as death. But
when I first watched it, I totally thought this was. I was pissed. I was like, no. I was like, really.
Oh, come on!
Like,
you didn't know they were going to download him into the Golem?
I thought about it, but I wasn't sure. Do you know what I mean? Like, I definitely the thought had occurred to me, but I wasn't sure where
I had
the show
already
was
talked
going to
to
go.
PJ about this because he said they're going to put, like, he said Sung wants to put himself in the Golem. I'm like, I don't know. Like, not 1 second did I think Sung was going to put himself in the Golem. Because I was still hoping and praying that Sung was going to be Lore in some fashion, because I don't like the idea of that Sung existing. So I was like, it has to be Lore.
This episode endeared me to that
denial.
Sung. This episode endeared me to that Sung very much. Like, I like that even, you know, Jean-Luc is even like, I don't really like him, and Data's like, you know, Data's like my brother. So here's the thing though, like,
so
of
Data
course,
knew about him.
This is the weird part, which is, again, we get this all the time. There's Cybok. There's what's his name? Anakin? No, what's the name of this thing? Alton, and there's Michael Burnham. It's like the forgotten siblings seems to be a trope now. It's officially a trope, right? Like, it's just like, this is like a reoccurring thing now in Star Trek. So hopefully we don't have any more forgotten siblings going for. Well, we do. We have Thomas Riker also.
So well, he's not a sibling. He's a.
That's true.
Yeah,
he's like a duplicate.
That's an interesting sci-fi concept right there.
Yeah.
But to me that was very touching, and like, just like the last scene. So it's in a way it was a lot more satisfying of a death than just Data blowing up, even though, you know.
Really. Wow.
Yeah, I really feel. Okay. I feel like there was like I got to say goodbye, and then again, just I can't help it. It's inextricably linked. Like, you know, in Nemesis, I'm like.
Exactly. That's what I love about it. Is that, you know, I think
that's the point.
That's the point. Is that
I get
it just happens, and then
I'm gonna be real harsh.
I get it, but
okay?
I got to get
I'm
my.
gonna be real harsh. Imagine if we hang up, and I go outside and get hit by a truck. All right, how the fuck are you gonna feel? You're gonna have that face, because that's what death is like. Death feels like that, because death is meaningless, and it's kind of like, oh my goodness.
Feel like that,
and that was the point. That's why I like character deaths in shows that are just kind of snap.
Sean,
exactly.
I love you, and I'll miss you.
Thank you. That's very kind. But that's why I like deaths to be kind of like finger snaps, rather than, because they do, like, The Walking Dead does this. For The Walking Dead, for non-important characters, they kind of just shoot them in the face and it's gone, and you're like, oh my goodness. Whereas important characters, they like to drag it on, it takes the entire episode, it becomes a whole thing. You're like, I don't feel the emotion is less, because there's so much of a spectacle and a thing around the death.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's me, but
yeah, I think what I love about Nemesis is that it's just how quick it happens, and it happens. It's a quick decision. He saves Picard, and what I especially like is how the characters react to the death. I think that's the what I like to see. In when a character dies, is how the other characters react to it. And in Nemesis, we have the people that were essentially his family reacting to it in that wonderful scene in Picard's ready room, And what this episode made me do is I went right away and I watched Nemesis right after. I queued it up.
If I may,
and I kind of hit like the highlights of Nemesis, and I went to that was one of the scenes, and Riker was saying how, the first time I saw him, he was whistling, and I just felt that was, I still felt emotions rewatching that scene. And watching Data die again in this episode didn't do much for me at all.
Okay. I do want to share something really personal, but I also want to make a point that's not personal. When I saw Nemesis, I couldn't help but think, and I'm not saying I didn't like this, but I couldn't help but think of the parallels to Star Trek 2. And the whole time I'm like, and this is something that I liked actually. The whole time I'm like, Data's gonna come back. Everyone, before Data's in B4, like blah blah blah. There was true. There was never a doubt in my mind that like something was gonna happen. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so the personal thing I want to share, because we talked about how like death is so impactful when it's like sudden and things like that, is that like I witnessed a friend die in hospital many years ago from cancer. I was there when she took her last breath. It was powerful and sad and meaningful, and that's and like the image of that Data would conjure a Picard to hold his hand, and he would age and experience like a true death. Like I'm getting goosebumps thinking of it now, because it reminds me so much of my friend, how she like got to have closure. She got to have, and like in a way this was for me Star Trek saying, Data's gone, but here we're gonna give you this scene so that you can handle it better. He's not coming back. He's not coming back through B4. He's not coming. There's no. That's it. Like, but here, what was left of his consciousness, this sort of like simulation, this like complex like thing, is giving me that kind of. And Picard too. It gives Jean-Luc just like has this like thing too, where he gets to finally like interact with Data and say how sorry he was that he died instead of him, and like, to me it was so powerful, and it was like. Even though it was another death, it kind of linked it to the first death and gave the closure, I think, that I couldn't have from the first death, because I was constantly like, no, they're gonna bring him back. That's what always happens in science fiction. Like, so this is what I would arguably call the true death of Data.
I will agree with you in that I do like that they finally have resolved that Data is in fact gone. Because that is true. We all, and there's even comic books where they, Data's back, and they say, oh, it was before, and his whatever, blah, blah, blah. I do like the fact that they have finally given him a final death.
And they started with episode 1. They started with episode 1 where they had before in the drawer, and they said, no, before is he's essentially, he's not working. Right. And Data overloaded him with the information, and like, Data won't come alive through B4's body, because I know that that's a thing that people enjoy, and I think it's stupid. I've never liked that idea. I think that Data would completely refuse to replace his brother's mind and use his body. That goes against everything Data is.
100%. I was always on the fence about it, but now I have to agree with you, because this episode proves that. This episode proves that Data's consciousness, his like whatever the simulation even was like, I just want to die. Like, but I'm ready. Like,
And this might meet you guys halfway here, because the thing is, what disappointed me the most in all of this thing is that Picard then had the knowledge and the responsibility, or kind of like the power, to end Data's life, but didn't think, oh, Data can wait another few days so I can contact Geordi and all his friends, and maybe they can come and assist the end of Data. He was just like, I'm gonna deactivate him here with a bunch of people no one knows him. Like, no one knows.
They'll forgive him. And they'll forgive him, I think.
Would you?
Yeah, I would.
If you were Geordi, would you?
Because I think for the rest of them...
Will he even tell them? I feel like he's not going to tell them, and he's just going to let them, like, the death of Data for them... Like,
I don't think
Sarah,
well, I mean, he is a jerk. He totally didn't contact them. It's true. They would have to relive it. That's true. But also, it was Picard who's been plagued all these years by Data's death, in a different way, in a more direct. in a direct way. Like Picard's life was saved by Data, and he even says it in this episode. He says, "I wanted to apologize to you." So I don't think it would have been fair to wait. I don't know if Data would have wanted him to wait. I think you're right on the point of like it would mean they would have to go through it all again when they've already dealt with it. You know what I mean?
I think like putting aside the other characters, because it looked like Deanna and Riker had moved on in the sense that they have other deaths to mourn. But I feel like the show made a point of showing how much Data's death impacted Picard, but it's not fair to say that Data's death didn't have an impact on, say, Geordi.
That's not what I was trying to say.
But that was his best friend. I honestly, if I was Geordi, and like I don't know, like 10 years later, he's like, oh, by the way, his positronic matrix was still alive somewhere, and we deactivated it on a planet, and like no one told you, I would be pissed. I'd be like, are you kidding me? And then even if they had said things like, oh, but you couldn't have seen him, it was a simulation, it would have been like, yeah, but still, when the red memory stick light turned off, I wasn't there.
What's really demented is that Geordi probably already has a holographic version of Data that's been living in his personal holodeck for all these years, because that's how Geordi rolls, and that's 100%.
You think there's like Barclay and Geordi, and they both have simulations of like the Doctor and Data.
100% what's going on.
And Barclay's in there, right? Yeah.
Barclay's in there. Geordi's like Geordi
is there the really short Riker?
Yeah, for Geordi, Data's never actually died. He's been living in a secret holodeck that Geordi keeps from everyone. He's like, Leah, honey, because he's supposedly married to Leah Brahms, right? And he's like, Leah, honey, I'll be back. Gonna go hang out with my best friend in the holodeck. See you later. She's like, oh, Geordi.
Actually, in the basement of Riker's house, Riker constructed a holodeck just so Geordi can chill down there, because he's concerned for his friend. He's like, just we'll leave him downstairs. He's with his holographic simulations. It's fine. We'll bring him some pizza now and then.
We'll bring him some
I do like that the pizza line came up, by the way, where he says like, what did you think? I was gonna sit at home and make pizza while you had all the fun. That was a pretty good line.
I'm gonna say one thing.
That was the best line of the whole thing.
No. My favorite line was a Narek line, which is astonishing because I don't really like Narek nor his dialogue. But when Narek said, "Yes, I absolutely do choose to live," I found that very funny, because I didn't like the way that they tried to force Elnor's catchphrase, like, "Friends, do you choose to live?" I didn't like the way they forced that catchphrase. But I like that Narek immediately comes out and says, "Yes, I choose to live." I found that funny.
That was funny, yeah. That's true.
Very good, very good. Let's see what else. I think we covered everything. Don't you think?
Yeah, we didn't cover the end of everything plot, did we? The end of the world plot.
Because at the end, I have to agree. Oh, so here you're gonna like this, Sean. I have to agree with you. It's like overplayed. It's like too much. Yeah, like it's a bit
grandiose in scale, right?
But I don't think it was the point in this see in Star Trek Discovery, going back to that was the whole season, and like I do think that, like, this wasn't the whole. I mean, it was definitely a threat to the Zhat. I was always saying this, like, it was a threat to the Zhat Vash, but the Federation characters didn't even know that was going on. Like, they had no idea. And even you see that in this episode where Narek has to explain this whole thing, and they're like, oh, we didn't know that was happening. And even Jean-Luc is like clueless to it until he finds out in the last episode about the beacon. And so they're looking at it from a whole different perspective. They're like, Jean-Luc is like, okay, it's great that you have this, like, possible thing that can come from wherever, from another dimension, like from like JD Salinger, not JD Salinger. Who am I thinking of? Who am I thinking of?
H.P. Lovecraft.
H.P. Lovecraft. Thank you. This Lovecraftian, like, godlike, synthetic, overlord. But why do you have to use it? Like, there's no reason to. That's not the way to. You don't have to do that. Like, we're here. We're here for you. So I liked that. I didn't think it was like the overlying thing. It didn't get tiring like it did in Discovery, where all it was like, all of sentient life is going to be. And the other thing about Discovery is, like, there's no real threat because we know all of sentient life isn't destroyed. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, idiotic.
it's like, why do this like over, here in Picard at least there was a little bit of a, oh wow, are these things gonna like, are we gonna see Andor destroyed by Cthulhu, like, are we gonna see like, there's like, there is the threat of like, could it go that direction?
I think
which is
it comes down to it's a bit of a shame that the writing team feels compelled they need these big things as like a vessel for their character moments. Like you can do character driven episodes or smaller stories. You don't need necessarily the end of all world kind of arcs. And yes, you can justify their existence like in a million different ways. Like in any time any of us makes a video and comes up with some sort of thing that we didn't like in an episode, there's 1,000 people that can disagree in 1,000 different ways. And come up with solutions, right? But
you're right in
like,
the sense that
I feel like the sense of scale and scope, we don't need that much, and
we don't. But maybe audiences do.
The best thing in last episode, the best thing in part one, the best moment was Picard talking with Soji about Data, and I think that like the best moments in this episode, like Rafi and Rios talking on the ship, was great. Like it's the small moments, and the character moments that what I like.
And what was the most powerful thing was the whole like the death of Data. For me, that was my thing, was like the death of Data, and also like Picard not dying without his friends, which I couldn't have.
It was a bit frustrating for Riker to leave, and then the scene after that is Picard dying. You're like, but he was there.
He does say
he just said, "I've always got your back," and then he leaves. And then you're like, well,
right.
Okay, he shouldn't have left. That's one thing. Regardless of the Picard dying thing, they just chased off the Romulan army. They're Romulans. They probably just warped to the next sector and they're still scanning.
But that's what they were doing. They're escort. Remember he says, no problem, we're going to escort you anyways. That's what they're doing, is they're following the Romulan fleet.
Oh, okay.
To, like, because she's like, we don't need an escort. And he's like, no problem. We have no problem with it. And that's why he's in a rush to go off, because they're chasing the Romulan fleet. But I also think that, like, he could have sent the fleet, the Impossible Fleet.
He could have stayed.
He could have stayed
and stayed. Like I would have liked that. But again, it wasn't Picard's true death, so I forgive the show for it, because like there's no way that Riker cannot be present during Picard's actual death. So that's okay.
So now, let me ask you because this emphasis that Riker has to be there and all this stuff, is this because of Kirk? Are you still traumatized by
100%.
Kirk dies alone?
I appreciated that Jean-Luc was there for him, but no, it was dirty to me the way. But again, it's to your point earlier. It is impactful because for Scotty and Chekhov, it's just as powerful as Data. Like what we felt, you know what I mean? Like for that moment when Kirk is taken by the Nexus bolt, the Nexus lightning or whatever. And it's such good acting. Excuse me 1 second. Hold on. Keep talk amongst yourselves for a sec.
Okay. So what was your favorite part of this episode then? What do you think was the highlight?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Was there a highlight?
I don't think. In my opinion, it's not a great episode of Star Trek. It's like it was better than part one, and it was better than what I expected. I was expecting so much. I was expecting this to be just a big, noisy mess, and it wasn't. What is this? Orange juice?
It's the doctor's favorite drink. Anyway, sorry. Go on.
I was expecting this episode to be a big pile of noise, like just rubble and garbage and what have you, but it wasn't. It was more than that. But I, like a favorite moment, I don't know if I have a favorite moment. I'd have to once I rewatch it. Once I do my rewatch.
What does your gut say though? What was the thing that you liked the most? Just first impressions. You can change your mind. It's not. We're not going to hold you. We're not going to hold you to it like your rating. I haven't even done my
reaction video yet.
Like your rating of Extinction.
Straight here.
Your 6.5 rating on Extinction. We're not going to hold it against you. Enterprise. Look at you. I never seen him get mad on camera, but Sean looked.
No, I'm trying to think. You know what? I'm frustrated because I don't have a specific there's like no standout moment for me in the episode. Like it's just, I suppose, satisfied enough with the way that it conclude. I don't know. It is what it is.
You were You had
I was
low
expecting it to be much worse. It's like, okay,
had
here's the
low
thing. Every
expectations.
element that there is, like, I expected Picard to become the Golem, but I was expecting them to cast maybe a younger actor or to find some sort of excuse to say he's strong now or whatever. But they didn't do that. So it's not a standout moment, but it's just like, oh, they didn't go as stupid as what I thought they would. Know what I mean? And all of these elements are the same. Like, they still did the war, they still did the battle. There's all of these big ships, but they didn't do the actual battle, and I thought they were going to do that. So it's like, oh, okay, they didn't go as spectacular as I thought they did. They kind of dialed it back. And everything is like that. Like, they did the fight with Seven and Narissa, but it was kind of small and contained, and we didn't, like, I was expecting Narissa to die a horrible, gruesome, very gory death on screen, but they didn't do that. She fell into an abyss.
Do you think she's really dead?
That's the thing.
I don't think so.
That's the thing. I think, okay.
I think they're going to bring her back.
Normally, I would say yes, they bring her back, because if you don't see a character physically dead on screen in a TV show or in a movie nowadays, it means they will come back, because half the characters that are physically did come back anyway.
Right.
So I feel like there's already been so much gore and violence, and that this episode this is supposed to be the positive of the season, right? This is supposed to be the positive resolution of everything. I think it was a choice not to have her bleed and just to have her kind of disappear like a Disney villain into nothingness.
Not only
but
that,
she is dead.
Not only that, I just realized something. In the first episode, whenever the Jadvash or Tal Shiar soldiers that are attacking Daj are like kicked off a ledge, they're beamed away. And when the ex-Borg are attacking Narissa, we could have sworn that she beams off. Maybe she just beams away to another part of the ship. And the same thing could happen when she's falling down this chasm, as she could beam herself away into another part of the ship. So I think you're right that she might not be dead.
I feel that her... what's her brother's name? Navik?
Narek.
I still feel that Narek... Because, I mean, we don't know what happened to Narek either. Other than... I mean,
or Ramda. Where's Ramda?
But I mean, at the end, like, he's nowhere to be seen. We don't know if he's arrested. We don't know if he snuck off. I don't really know. He was just there when
he's
the soccer
held down.
Ball was kicked.
The last time we see him,
was...
he's being held down by the synthetics, so he's probably back in the prison. He's probably been put back in prison.
But we didn't see a final scene with him.
No
character interacted with him afterwards, and I'm guessing he'll be back at some point next season. And I feel that he's this character that needs some kind of redemption in some way, and that won't happen until he kills his sister.
I disagree.
Really feel that his sister, he's the one that has.
I think they're not going to come back.
Sister.
I don't think any of them are coming back. I don't think the Commodore O's coming back. I don't think this story is going to continue. To me, it felt like the synth ban is lifted. It's all good. Wow. There's a new crew. They're like a crew now. They're going to go off onto new adventures. No, I 100% think it's resolved. Like, yeah, I do. I don't think
it's all resolved.
I mean, I think it'd be interesting. I don't think they invested enough in those. What's that?
That's what happened.
Yeah, that's what they did with the Klingon War in part one. In part one, in part one. Sorry, in Discovery, in Discovery season 1. You don't get anything after that. Everything's honky dory. The Federation is a happy place again, other than the threat of all sentient life in the universe. But
other than the fact that they lost 70% of all Starfleet.
I think season 2 is going to be a happy balance of episodic, like, science-y, like, explorative episodes. I think we're going to see Soji go into Starfleet. I think that's going to be the path. I think at the end of the series, I agree with something. So I was really mad at Sean on Twitter in a private conversation because he said that Soji is the main character of Star Trek Picard. and I got pissed because I'm like, it's Jean-Luc, la 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 la. I even dropped some F-bomb, the sheer fucking hubris, blah blah blah. But I do think, when I thought about it, and I apologize to you publicly, Sean, and Gary will be happy if he hears this, because he was upset that I was really, really pissed about this. But you're right. I think it is Soji, and as we get further into the seasons, the focus is going to go from Picard to Soji, and it'll be a handoff, like, in other words. And I hope, my dream is that Soji's journey ends with her being on the next Enterprise. I want that show. No, I don't care if she's the captain. I want her to be the captain, but like, it's okay if she's also like, if Picard transitions into Star Trek, whatever it's called, but transitions back into, if Picard kind of shepherds us from this reality back to Star Trek, like the USS Enterprise, exploration, new, strange new worlds, new civilizations, boldly going where no one, including synthetic life forms, have gone before. And it would make sense to have another Data, like the lineage of it was like so wonderful when we saw Sulu's daughter on the Enterprise B, Data's daughter, which she is, on the Enterprise FG, whatever, plenty of letters in the alphabet. So that's my hope. Not sure that's where it's heading, but I think that's would be a nice thing.
There was one thing that confused me. Is there's a line about where what's her name? Who's the blonde scientist who killed Maddox?
Girardi.
Girardi tells Sung's son, "Hey, you do cyber kung fu better than anybody. Maddox told me that." Right? Am I making this up, or that line happens, right? So
yes.
Maddox. Okay, what I'm a little confused about.
But he says it.
So Maddox knew about Sung's son and had told Girardi about it. So was Sung's
which is
son
referenced. Well, it's referenced
common
also.
Knowledge
Must be, but because it's referenced in the episode where Maddox is dying, he says, "Sung, me, and you, we did it. We created Soji. She's so perfectly imperfect," or whatever he says. But he says, "Sung, me, and you." So, Girardi in that sense knew about Sung. I think Sung is not unknown. I just don't think he's Noonien, right? The guy can't even figure out how to put his consciousness into a golem, a synthetic body, which Noonien had mastered. And that's, to me, like, funny that, like, no one, but it happens too. Like, Leonardo da Vinci did things that we can't to this day understand how he came about it. And it took, many years for us to achieve some of the ideas that he had, and so on and so forth. So I could see that. But Sung is knowledge. What's interesting is that Jean-Luc has never seen a Sung, as far as we know, and that's why he's surprised when he sees him and he looks so much like Data.
But was it known? Like, did they know that he was on this planet with all these androids?
No, they were all in the android thing was the secret. Like, Sung might not have been a secret because Maddox helped make it happen. All those androids. My understanding
Maddox was involved in
Maddox
that.
and Sung created, like, for example, pretty much all the androids that are there. But some of the androids are also created by androids, because the androids were also creating androids. So there's, like, a lot of, like, synthetic life stuff going on.
Doesn't Will Smith say you've got robots building robots? That's stupid.
Yes. Okay.
Exactly. What was your highlight, Doctor? You asked Sean and
Riker showing up at the end.
It was great.
That's pretty much the only moment that I really
enjoyed.
the
Data.
I was very disappointed by the whole thing. The data death was, like I said, it this seems going to sound really crass, but I think it's public knowledge that Brent Spiner has this love-hate relationship with Data, the character, and he's...
Isn't that interesting that Leonard Nimoy also once grappled with that?
Yeah, well,
and they're very similar type of characters.
I understand.
It must be overwhelming.
So associated with one role and and all that. But I kind of always looked at Nemesis because Brent Spiner helped to write it with John Logan. I just always saw the ending of it as kind of like a little FU to Data, because it's like, not only did I kill him, but I'm leaving you his dumb prototype brother. And there's no hope of Data ever coming back, but I'm going to leave you this inferior copy of him. As I don't know. I never understood really, other than outside of the plot mechanics. I never understood the point of B4.
Many of the actors that were in TNG, I think, had some kind of hurt from the response to Nemesis, and I think we see Patrick Stewart having said, I'm probably never going to put on the spacesuit again. And I think, Brent Spiner, made sure, didn't want to be typecast. He probably saw what was, who knows, he may have had conversations with Leonard Nimoy, and it's Brent Spiner is so gifted and so talented. To be only remembered as Data is a travesty in a way. You know what I mean? He's such a great character actor, but I think he could also do so much more. And I saw that in the Soong character. There was something else. There was something new, and it was very different from what we've seen from Brent Spiner before. So I was very impressed with him, and I think he should have many opportunities to perform. But I do think that there was a hurt. I remember, I don't know, you can maybe glean some extra color into this, but I just remember the response to Nemesis, Nemesis being a disappointment, nailing.
Oh yeah, I think you and I are the only. Actually, I don't know. Sean, do you like Nemesis?
I do.
Oh,
okay,
cool. We
so the three of us
all
like Nemesis. Most people didn't like Nemesis at all.
And
I do.
I would argue that Data's death is probably the best thing in that movie, actually.
Yeah.
And I very much enjoy how it is, thematically. I think that there's this theme of brotherhood or mirror, in Data being the most advanced thing, and then B4 being the least advanced, and then you have the Federation and Romulus, but then you have Remus. I don't know. There's all these themes.
Yeah.
What do you think of?
I think that I understand what they mean. I understand what people mean about it being but I don't. I don't know. I understand the arguments that people make, but I disagree with them. Picard being happy riding a dune buggy, it doesn't make Picard a terrible character. And
I love that
it's not
scene,
because it's not because he's a bloody diplomat that he can't ride a dune buggy, right? I mean,
yeah, or fly a little.
It doesn't make
ship
sense to me.
Yeah.
And I think that visually, it's a very interesting movie. I think that the music is very good. I think that
the score right here.
Generally speaking, I think that, and this is in direct contradiction to what I'm going to say with Picard. Picard, I think the scale or the scope of the events are too big, and they try to handle too much. But I think Nemesis is the other way around. Nemesis is very small. Ultimately, nothing really happens in Nemesis, and it's so small. And there's this big thing about Shinzon doing a coup and everything, but ultimately he just takes one ship into a cloud and dies.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, the threat was he was headed for Earth to radiation.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. He would have been stopped. Come on. He's got to go from the Romulan Star Empire
and
through the entire Federation space.
The Impossible Fleet would have stopped him.
Oh, by Nemesis there was 16.
I love that you
fleets.
I love that you're embracing the Impossible Fleet. That's very awesome.
Well, the Impossible Fleet has to exist when there's no Enterprise, because.
Guys,
they would have been 12.
When there's no Impossible Fleet, you just need the Enterprise. You just need one ship.
I wonder.
It's either the Enterprise is in the sector, or if the Enterprise is not in the sector, then it's the Impossible Fleet.
Exactly. You have to have one or the other. Right.
But they're never at the same place, because
the Enterprise could do if it was the Enterprise that had shown up, it would have only been the Enterprise, and that's all we would have needed against the 200 Romulan ships.
I think there's a part of me that wanted the Enterprise,
100%.
and I know why they didn't do it. I absolutely know why. I totally understand why the Enterprise was not there. But having said that, the Impossible Fleet was not. I don't know. It just it didn't fulfill that void.
I made
like if it
I
had
made
just
a-
been, you know.
I would have
made a
enjoyed
comment-
the Impossible Fleet to be ships from the TNG era.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah,
This is
that
what
would've
remember in
looked
the
at
beginning.
that
for
would-
sure.
Yes, sorry, that would have been like
Yeah.
they found a way to like it wouldn't have been all of these new ships. It would have been like all of these ships from the TNG era. So you could say these ships were already built, they were already
Yeah.
there, and we've just
Yeah.
assembled them. This was the fleet that was being sent to DS12, and that came here, and it's like we just called in everyone, and we sent them, and that
Everyone
makes
that
more
was in
sense.
the area.
Yeah, that makes
because,
sense.
That was what my statement in the beginning was, that sometimes you can do, like, where I said, oh, I was surprised that like that Star Trek Picard is not a high budget show as I thought it was. And that's the thing, is that like I totally understand that the repetitiveness like of the same exact kind of ship, although it works, quote unquote works, is a budgetary thing. It's so much simpler to build one CG model and replicate it. But I'm like, you built a fucking Galaxy class model for the opening of the show. Throw a couple of Galaxy. I mean, there's probably still in commission, right? Like the Galaxy class ships, there were like 100 of them or whatever, right? Or 50 at least. You know, throw in a couple of Sovereign classes, throw in a couple of Reliant, what are they called? The Miranda classes. Like, you know, just throw in a couple of different, just a variety of ships. Like, it doesn't have to be like the majority of the ships could be these newfangled, you know, destroyers, but like just throw in a couple of like, just to make it look more realistic. I think that the audience tuning in that doesn't care about that stuff, like new people are going to be like, whatever, like, well, why are all the Romulan ships, why do they all look the same? Well, it's the same thing, right? Like, there was, you know, what I loved about TNG and Deep Space Nine and was that you saw the newer style you know, Klingon ships, but you also saw the Bird of Preys, and you also saw like the old D7s, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't
and they
just
had
like
to build physical models.
Mm-hmm.
well, yeah, and I think that's why they were more encouraged to use them, is that I think that like nowadays, like with CG, it's like, well, can we save money? How can we do it? You know, like it's so much, but it would have been a gift to a very small group of people to do that, but it would have been such a great gift. Do you know what I'm saying? Like maybe the newer audience doesn't care if it's all one kind of ship or whatever, but like this group here and a lot of other people who like grew up watching Star Trek and just, or like have been watching Star Trek for many years. I don't mean that only people, you know, who watched it growing up could enjoy this, but just like anyone who's like invested in more Star Trek would probably appreciate seeing their favorite, like a Voyager. What's the Voyager? The Intrepid class. I mean, it would have been cool. They're like powerful little ships, you know, and so I think that was definitely
all of the
something
ships
that
they built.
That's
for
what I meant
First
by it.
Contact.
I don't think the budget was there, because why
Yeah.
wouldn't you just do it? What's that?
It's explained that after the Borg attack in TNG, Federation went out and built all these tough little ships, and so those are the ones that pop up in First Contact. You get all these random, strange-looking ships that do the fight against the Borg cube in First Contact. All of those ships, like, there must be some of them still lying around. But then I understand that they couldn't use those ships for the Romulan saving missions, because those ships, they don't have the transporter systems in place, they don't have the rooms in place, they don't have, like, they weren't made for transporting people, they were made for fighting the Borg. So it would make sense to bring them here, but then you could justify that they weren't used to save the Romulan people,
There's
because they
nothing.
weren't built
There's
for that, I guess.
in universe. There's nothing wrong with what happened. I'm just saying, like, out of universe, it would have been a nice gift, like what Humbert was saying. Like, if you didn't see the Enterprise, at least you saw a ship you loved, like another ship, like a familiar ship. You know what I mean? Like in the background somewhere. Like, it would have been a really nice thing, and it's a very Star Trek thing to do. You know, I think so.
I'm going to follow up something
why
that you
not?
said earlier. You were talking about, bring it way back, you were talking about what you think they're going to do in Season 2, and how you think they're going to do like more self-contained stories, a little...
Well, a mix, like I like to use Doctor Who Season 5, Series 5 as I call it the perfect season of a show. And The Expanse certainly does this too, don't get me wrong, but like before The Expanse, that was like, I was blown away because it was episodic and overarching. There was an overarching huge story, and it all just kind of like came together. Oh, and The Mandalorian is another great example.
Okay, I think that I don't know if you're right, but and I just asked PJ because he knows the names. I've forgotten the names. There are two people. Because Michael Chabon is stepping down as showrunner. There's a guy called Terry Matalas, which is coming in as showrunner, and he's the guy. He's one of the writers that worked on 12 Monkeys, the show.
I haven't seen
and
it.
He's in Ultra Tricky. He worked on 12 Monkeys, and he's taken over as showrunner for the show. And they've also hired a guy called Mark Bernardin, which is he worked on as an intern on Deep Space Nine, and he's been he's a film critic, and he has a podcast, and he's very, 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 very critical about the minute details of every show that he watches and what have you. And so you have these two people that are not only sci-fi like buffs, but
so
also
they basically...
very, very critical and analytical. They're like me, but professional. Like
I was gonna say
the
they
of
basically
me, right?
took you and Humbert and made you the showrunners of season 2.
But better people. Professional people. And
Don't sell yourself short, but you got to work hard, kid.
But they put those guys as basically showrunners and executive producers for season 2. So there might be a bit of change in the direction or in the way that the season is presented to us.
Chabon's Star Trek vision, to me,
you can feel that he's a novel writer. Like you can feel
but that's
that
what
he
I
writes
like.
novels, and you can feel
To
that
me-
he likes the fantasy and it's all about how you feel.
I'm partial to it because I love Chabon. I'm a fan of his work, but so I'm obviously a little partial to it. But what I will say is that I am glad to hear that they're going in that direction, because it kind of supports what I was thinking, which is this was the return to Star Trek. This was almost like an epilogue, is the way I feel after this episode, to Nemesis, to Star Trek: The Next Generation. It was actually I wanted Next Generation Part 2, but actually what I got was an epilogue. Okay, here's closure, on your questions. Now season 2 is
Except Beverly.
I know, I'm fucking upset. I'm so upset that Beverly... How could Beverly not
She's
be
dead.
there?
She's dead.
Can I take the time to say that they even referenced Mott the barber, but they still didn't put Beverly in the show.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah, man. She's dead.
They mentioned Geordi. They mentioned Worf.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why?
You know what would
Why?
have been the most hilarious thing? Would have been like a Pulaski shout out or something, but still not Beverly.
Oh, that would have been man. That would have been
Starfleet Boy would have... The tone would have changed. All these people that say I'm working for CBS
Wow.
or
Technically, that might happen because Lower Decks has that Cation doctor, and that it really does look like a cat version of Pulaski.
Anyways, I think we have gone on enough, don't you guys?
I have two questions.
Okay,
Two
go ahead.
questions. Okay.
Ooh.
I want to know from both of you, how do you feel with the cast of characters that we were introduced to? Do you think they all kind of reached a certain? Were you happy with the way the characters were resolved?
That's
the
a great
secondary
question.
Characters, in terms of Rios, what's her name? The one who calls him JL. Rafi. Holding hands with 7 of 9 in a rather
Oh, and did you notice the
amorous
Tuvok
way.
puzzle?
I happen to think they were,
Well,
they
there
were
was
very friendly
and
with each other.
I think that was very implied, but
I was,
but did you notice the Tuvok thing, Sean? The little puzzle he builds. It was next to 7 of 9 on the table.
Okay,
That's an Easter egg for you.
Oh, okay.
You know the little metal pieces,
you
whatever.
place the pieces and they crumbles. Or I didn't notice that they had that. I would have liked Rafi to have more resolution with her addiction and what have you, but I feel like they're gonna use that and use her son and what have you in further seasons. So that's okay. I still think that Dr. Girardi needs to have some sort of consequence for what she did. She just murdered a man.
She murdered Maddox.
And she's making out
and
with Rios at the end, and it's all good. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, like she murdered
Maybe
someone.
saving...
But the thing is, she murdered someone on a Federation citizenship within the Federation. So I feel like the Federation laws must apply.
under orders somewhat from.
Yeah, that's the enemies that didn't get resolution for me, because Commodore
Commander
O just
O
what you're saying is she
switches
needs
sides
her,
and
right.
nobody. Yeah.
Okay, what you're saying is she needs her day in court, and I agree with that. But I think she'll be absolved.
Probably.
She'll
They
be
probably just won't address it. But I don't like that Rafi and Seven, they were holding hands,
Why?
because it comes out of nowhere.
It does
But
come out of nowhere.
isn't that per the course with 7 of 9 though?
What do you mean? When she comes out
Did
of
her
nowhere?
and Chakotay kind of like out of nowhere the last?
I disagree.
You think Chakotay and 7 of 9 had a build up to that?
If you go back and watch the first moment where 7 of 9 steps foot on that ship, Chakotay is very conflicted, because on one hand he's constantly telling Janeway, like, you can't trust her, she's a Borg. But on this other hand, he's constantly helping her and helping her become more human, and he's like, there's this whole thing for many seasons where he's helping her out, and eventually Seven on her side starts developing these programs where she's learning how to date, and she's chosen Chakotay as her mate, and so they both have this kind of thing, and then eventually in season 7 it culminates into something. But then of course now he's probably dead.
That's true.
Because I mean, it's like,
Well, we don't know, but yeah.
okay, let me address
maybe.
this. Let me do a parenthesis on this. 7 of 9, I don't like the way that she considers herself an XB, and she's got no home, and la-di-da, and what have you, because there's a lot of scenes in Voyager where she says, I'm Annika, I'm going home to Earth, I have done some research, I have a great aunt, she still exists, she's there, I want to go home and live with her. And
Not only that, but she has the family.
Well,
of
it's also
Voyager,
really
doesn't she?
disappointing. It's also really disappointing that another thing that's disappointing is that, like, the original cast, the TOS crew, they remain a family throughout their days, basically, you know. And it is disappointing that both the TNG cast and, I mean, the crews from TNG and from Voyager don't
Just
seem to, like, care
separated,
about,
but-
like,
so,
like, their friends. Like, doesn't Janeway ever check in on Annika, or is she just, like,
that's the
giving her bullshit, like, oh, everything's fine, I'm on a research mission, or, you know, I don't know, like, what is going on there. So yeah, there are a lot of it's a little weird.
7 had very close friends on that ship. Like, the Doctor was the closest thing they could get to a friend. And then she also had a boyfriend that in an alternate future we saw she got married. So, like, you could say that she had a potential
remember that.
a potential husband with Chakotay, and she had basically a mother figure in Janeway, and she was going back to see her aunt on Earth. So it's like, it's not like the way they portrayed the XBs as like abandoned poor souls. I'm like, 7 wasn't like that. She didn't have
This
that.
could be I mean, maybe it wasn't as impactful as it should have been, but maybe Icheb's death is what drove her into this life, and maybe part of season 2 for her will be her return back to those things that you just mentioned, like coming back to her crew, coming back to her family.
Do you think she's going to be on
like
the second season as a regular?
100%. She's
Yes.
just, I mean, I would just say, just gauging the popularity of her, like on Twitter, it's all anyone can talk about is 7 of 9, like Queen 7, my queen, hashtag, which I'm all for it. Based on her popularity, I think it would be kind of like a sin not to at least include her in a good part of it. I also think that there's a potential that she and Elnor could go off and have their own show, perhaps, but I don't know. You know,
I wanted to
we'll
ask
see.
about Legolas. What, how do we feel about Legolas or Eleanor or whatever?
I think he serves, for me, he serves the purpose of a character that is just young and hopeful, and filled with, like, you know, love, like someone who just, like, you know, basically dotes over Picard in the way that, like, I do, in a sense. And to me, he reminds me, he's like the Wesley, in a sense, of this crew, because he is annoying at times. Like, even the characters themselves, you know, find some of his actions like a little awkward or annoying, but then he's learning and he's growing and he's becoming like a more resolved person because of his adventures. And he's found a group too. Finally, he's found that family that Jean-Luc promised all those years ago to the nuns that he would help find for Elnor. And so, like, it's very telling that Elnor, you know, who, like, at first you think he's just the muscle along for the ride to defend Jean-Luc, but then he goes and he has these side, like, I think it was very meaningful. To me, I think there was something very touching about how he was there for Hugh when Hugh died. I think the show definitely, like, again, is not beyond reproach or critique, but I think it did do a good job with, like, these little moments, and it could probably save his character or, like, make it even stronger rather in season 2. But I think, yeah, there were some, obvious, like, failures here, but I think overall he served his purpose, which, again, to me is like the Wesley kind of, like the early Wesley of the show. He has extraordinary abilities, and he's also very young. He's the kid.
I'm
a little perturbed at the doctor's silence. It means he's thinking about
analyzing
what I said. Yeah, like, I don't. I'm a little perturbed that, like, you accepted that. Anyways, go on.
No. Well, no. I think Wesley was more useful to the show as a character than this guy ended up being. I don't I mean, outside of the episode where he's introduced, I just don't feel that he contributed much. I mean, any other you could have put in any other character, substituted him in those scenes, and I think it would just been. It would have been as effective.
He would have just been Elnor, though. But that's what I mean, he's just.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
but he brings a new element into Star Trek that I think.
I don't know what the new element is. I don't understand what the new element is.
It's the melee. It's the
other
melee.
than he's got a sword. I mean.
Yeah, no, it is that. It's
it.
the melee fighting. It's like, this is something that I think like, you have to remember to a degree. And again, I'm not saying it was successful. It was for me. I'm not saying it was successful overall. But like for me, but for me, like, it brought something new into Star Trek. I don't think they went as far as they could have with this character, but I think that, like, that's also, since we're talking about it, we should wrap up soon, but since we're talking about it, like, we should have another discussion about the whole season, because now that it's finished, now I can, like, go back and go, okay, this wasn't done, this was a missed opportunity, I was waiting, like, I was, I've been giving all my 10s, but now that it's complete, I can actually go back and say with honesty, like, what I felt.
It was a 10 for you.
Well, it was, but I can go back and say, like, what I thought was a missed opportunity, or or things like that, because now it's complete as a season.
To finish on Elnor, I don't know about you guys, but I had these expectations in regard to the character and to the way they presented him as, like, kind of loyal to Picard and following Picard and what have you, and so I expected a lot of character depth between, and, like, moments between those two characters. And so when I realized that, like, when you kind of notice that you're not getting a lot of Elnor and he's not serving any specific purpose in the season, he's just kind of there, I got a bit frustrated. But by the time we finished the season, like, by the time I ended this episode, I had come to terms with the fact that he's really just decorative. And so by the time I came to the end of the season, I was accepting. I was like, it's fine. This is what the character is. It's not. He's just not. I was expecting him to be more in the foreground, but he wasn't. And I'm fine with it. Ultimately, like, I don't mind his character. I don't mind his existence. I don't mind the fact that he doesn't do much. He gives Hugh someone to talk to, and then he gives Sivan someone to talk to, and it's okay.
To me, all of the characters, and I think maybe, again, this might be something that's a critique, but to me, all of the characters, every single one of them is lost, is, like, listless, isn't doing what they're supposed to, aren't living up to their potentials, are wasting time, are just, like, regretful and this and that. And I feel like it isn't till Jean-Luc realizes that he was doing this. It shows what a leader truly does. I think that, like, that was one of the objectives of the show. I know that, like, Sir Patrick Stewart said that, like, he would want to show leadership, like, show, that like, one of the reasons he put the spacesuit back on, which he only puts on for a few scenes, but one of the reasons he would put the spacesuit back on, if it was compelling enough to show this. And I think in a time, in today's time, we're so disappointed in our leaders, and it's not just Donald Trump, but it's just across the board, everywhere in the world. There's very few examples of, like, what a leader does, and this is what I think we see here is that Jean-Luc helps these people find a purpose. And I think one of my there's a motorcycle out there, like a swoop or something. But anyways, one of my favorite people who it's like a inspirational kind of like person. He's very observant about society. He always says like, you know, we live in a society that teaches you that you have to be the celebrity. Like that's what you should strive to be. Is you should strive to be the president. You should strive the best, the everything, like whatever. But there's something to be said for finding someone else's vision and then adopting it as your own. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think that that's something that resonates for me here, where it's like, here's something that like, you know, when this like leader stopped leading, look at what happened, look at the consequences of his actions, and now he's found his way back, and now these people are following him, and I think it's beautiful. I do think that like, you know, a possible other future could be that Rios could be the next captain of the Enterprise. Any one of them, but Rios could be the next captain of the Enterprise. And like, what if the next crew, what if this crew transitions from a quote unquote motley crew into the next, like that professional crew, that thing you're used to, the problem solving, they're on mission, they never falter, they're not, you know what I mean? Like, what if they become that eventually? And I like that idea and that notion that we're seeing the prologue in a way to something that's going to become like, you know, what Star Trek, you know, represents for so many.
So we're going to rate it?
Yes. And I'll go first, as is per tradition. 10. I can't help it. I just can't help myself. I can't help myself.
I know
I
this
love
is,
you and nobody else.
I know this is going to
Jean-Luc.
be. I know this is going to be for your season discussion, and so don't do a full response. I'm just curious. When we rate every individual episode of like a season of TNG, I think it's fair to be able to just.
I know where he's going.
It's fair to, I forgot the word now. Oh my goodness.
It's fair to rate each episode because it's episodic. Is that what you're saying?
No, but what I'm saying is more on the season as a whole. Like if you take all of the ratings and then do an average, you can fairly say that is the average rating, and that average rating is the rating of the season. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's fair with Picard. Like I think that you can do a rating for each individual episode, like Nepenthe, I loved it, whatever. But then once the season is over, there's an overarching story, and it's like, so does all of these 10s that you've given each episode, do they accurately represent, in the end, how you feel about the season as a whole?
I've always given this disclaimer, and I have to say it, and I've said this on Twitter too, and I'm glad you brought this up, because for me, Star Trek Picard is something that I can't, it's just so hard to separate the very personal. I'm a bad critic for this show, a terrible critic for this show, because no, I'm being completely honest, and I think you wouldn't expect anything. You guys would come to the same conclusion, obviously, and the audience that's been listening to this is that like I am a terrible critic for this. It's not that I don't see the flaws in it, it's just that they don't matter to me as much, because the things that are resonating with me are so deeply personal. It's just like I don't know how to like take that out of those feelings and emotions out of my brain and make them into words, because like every time we talk, I'm like, how can you not be convinced by my overwhelming like excitement and enthusiasm to raise your own ratings? And that's why I always say the fair rating or the real rating is what you guys give. But honestly, like I'm a bad critic when it comes to the show. The show is just so to me like, and this is, no, I don't want to say that phrase because it's inappropriate. But just to me, it's very satisfying. It's just so satisfying on a very deep level. So I'm a terrible critic for the show. So I think I will give the whole season a 10, just based on what I'm seeing.
Well,
right
no,
now.
I mean, it's your opinion, and your opinion is very valid.
Yeah.
And
Thank
I'm
you.
sure there's lots of people who watched it, and like you said, this was very satisfying for them. This is exactly what they've been waiting for.
Not exactly. It's going back to the Rolling Stones.
Okay,
That's why I said it. You can't always get what you want, but this gave me what I needed. This gave me exactly what I needed.
There we go. All right. Well said. Yeah.
We got the tie into the Rolling Stones too.
All right, now give us the real ratings, gentlemen.
Sean, would you like to go first, or is it age before?
I feel bad going after his 10, so
Oh,
you do it. You might soften the blow a bit.
He won't feel bad. Yeah, it's a good.
I don't feel bad. No, I wasn't as satisfied as Sahel was, to say the least. And I came into this very open. I really
Optimistic,
wanted
yeah.
to
Yeah.
love this show unconditionally, and I didn't. So I'm rating this episode
Individually.
I'm not rating the season. We're going to save that
Right.
for the season. I'm just
Okay.
rating the episode. I believe I gave the last episode a 5.
Okay.
And I think this is a 5. This is par the course. I think this is, to me, there is not much difference in my disinterest as I've had with other episodes. Like I think my expectations were very high, and they were going down, and they kind of, I guess the curve bottomed out or whatever. Like it kind of hit a.
It peaked at Nepenthe for you, though. Actually.
Oh well,
remember,
Nepenthe
yeah.
was a woof.
Yeah.
But everything, I've pretty much grown accustomed to the fact that this show, being better than Discovery, I enjoyed it more than Discovery, is it's okay. I mean, it's not something I would, at this point, I have any interest in rewatching. It's a 5. It's okay. It's as good as any average episode of Next Generation. It doesn't outshine anything Next Generation did. Really, I don't see why this is the story that called Patrick Stewart back. I was expecting something to match Nemesis, and it didn't. But so it's a 5 for me, the episode. So there.
Okay.
Have I paved the road well for you, Sean?
Yeah, I feel better now.
Can you?
I don't feel as horrible a person.
Okay, go ahead.
I will agree with that statement, though. Regardless of what we all think about the show, I don't quite understand why this is the story that compelled Sir Patrick Stewart to come back. Like, I don't understand what elements were so important that come back, and ultimately I feel like it's because he was allowed to be an executive producer that he thought, all right, this is cool. This is new for me. I can I can be a producer, and that's a new experience for him. So, anyway, I give it a 5 as well.
All right.
I give it
Very
a 5
cool.
as well.
So, what's the average there? Is it
It's a 5, Sal. It's a 5.
No.
It's 5.
My 10 throws you guys
yours,
off.
No, yours doesn't count because you.
No, you just
admitted-
said you just finished saying how my opinion's valid, and it also that many other people. So I represent a
So it's
section
like
of society.
it's 20 divided by 3, and basically it's like it was like 13 or something.
It's like a 7. So what I will say is that it is really awesome that the three of us have these opinions and that we can come together and talk about them, and I'm really grateful for that in this time of uncertainty in the world, real existential crisis happening for so many people. I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude that like I got to be alive during all of this, and to be here with you guys now. And so thank you very much. And audience, that goes for you too. If you made it through this discussion and you you want to, please like this discussion. If you liked it, please
I
comment.
love how it's like 6.666. I love how
Ooh, it's a devilish number.
No, it's you round it up to a 7, but I love how like we give it both 5s, and considering you give it a 10, it becomes a 7, which is a good rank. It's like a good rating.
A 6.5, which would be probably more fair, is also a good ranking. It's not that bad. Like it's above it's above average or whatever. But we're talking about the individual episode, and we haven't talked about the season yet, so we'll have
fair.
that discussion.
I wouldn't be angry if like the average rating of this episode was a 6.5. I'm actually curious to go into IMDb and see how the ratings are like, because they were higher than me. But
while you quench your curiosity, I would like to highlight that Sean, you'll be doing your review and analysis or Easter eggs
And
as
the
well.
Easter eggs. Yes, I love that part.
And then, and certainly there were a lot we didn't talk about in this one. We didn't talk about all the sciencey stuff about the neuron thing, which I wonder if you guys were satisfied with Data's explanation with simulation data, simulacrum data. His
I didn't
explanation.
quite understand that. I'm gonna be honest.
I did.
I was a bit confused with all of the magical elements of the neuron and the.
I think the gist of it was
I'll
to say that,
rewatch it.
like, I think the gist of it was to put just what all that explanation was to just put closure on the character of Data, which I think was good.
I will say this: I've been thinking about what you were saying, Sean. That his Picard's condition really ended up being, it was a non-issue because they ended up moving him into the body. However, I mean, I'm assuming when they were doing the breakdown of the overarching story, they knew that they were going to have an ending where Data and Picard were going to say, farewell to each other. And I guess the nut to crack is, well, how do we do this? How do we bring Picard and Data together? So Picard has to die. We have to find a way for him to quote unquote die.
Get into the simulation.
Because to get him into the simulation, because that's where Data is. So from a writer's point of view, that's actually the thing you have to crack. How do we do this? How do we get to this scene? Like I think what they were going for was that scene, and how do we make it work? Because obviously it can't be a dream. It has to be actual.
It has to be
him
both characters interacting. It can't be just Picard dreaming about Data or Data having a simulation of Picard. It has to be both.
Oh my gosh,
Look
did
at
the
Sal's-
rating just go up? I'm so happy right
Shut
now.
up, Sal. Look at his smile. Look at his, like... doesn't mean it's any better. I'm just explaining the writer's process. Like, why would they have even introduced it? Because really, his syndrome is something that is not brought up ever again after the finale. I mean, we had 4 movies and all this stuff, and nobody gave a crap about his whatever. But to bring it up, it had to have a purpose. And you're right. What is the purpose? If you're not going to kill if you're not really going to kill him, but you want to bring him to the brink, and why bring him to the brink other than...
Maybe that was it. Maybe that was the scene that motivated the robotic syndrome. Because then you can justify it, like you can say, it doesn't exist in the movies because he's still young, in that sense, and it started affecting him now, like now that he's 90 or 94 or something in the show. Like,
just like in All Good Things, it parallels All Good Things, and kind of like, even though the anti-time future is not real, there are elements from that future that we confirm that are real, like Dr. Crusher confirming that there is in fact an anomaly in his brain and that it may or may not affect him in the future. So
in that sense, I understand why they had to do it. Like, it's true, I did think, well, what was the whole point of that? But I said, well, but then that's how you get him in with Data. And I think, I don't know, maybe that was one of the reasons that Patrick Stewart
came back.
I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know.
We'll find
I
out.
would like to know. I would like to know.
He's on
What
Will
is it?
Wheaton's show today, The Ready Room, so maybe the answers are there. I haven't watched it yet. Anyways, gentlemen, may there be nothing but blue skies from now on in your Star Trekking adventures. Audience, let us know what you think of this discussion. Live long and prosper, and we'll see you next time. You and you and you and you and you and your little dog too.
no, not him.
Oh, okay, not him.
Was that
not
a
him.
Wizard of Oz reference?